Now we are.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January 9th, 2023 meeting of the Community Advisory Council for IOLERO. This is our first meeting of the year. I hope everybody had a great holidays and a great new year. I'm looking forward to 2023. I wanted to let people know that Spanish interpretation is provided as an accommodation if requested in advance for future meetings. If you do need a Spanish translator, please call us at 707-565-1534, and we will make every effort to provide for an accommodation. This information is also listed in Spanish on our agenda and our website for those who need that. Similarly, if you have a disability which requires an accommodation, please also contact us at 707-565-1534. Regarding public comments at CAC meetings, members of the public are free to address the CAC. Public comments should fall under the subject matter of the CAC and will be time limited, typically to 3 minutes. These limitations are at the discretion of the chair and vice chair and director. In addition to oral public comments, the community is also invited to email us and to communicate with us through email at cac@sonoma-county.org. And we do welcome any and all emails, both for public comment and information that you'd like to send us for future agendas, policies that you'd like us to look at, really anything of CAC jurisdictional information. We're happy to hear from our public. The CAC may not deliberate or take action on items not on the agenda and may only listen and respond briefly in limited circumstances. Should the CAC members wish to deliberate on an issue raised during public comment, please bring that to our attention and we can place it on a future agenda item for possible discussion and action. Materials related to an agenda item are distributed as part of this agenda packet and are available for public inspection. Lizette, Ms. Camacho, may I ask you to please read our community commitment to civil engagement and design team alliance information?
Sure. Commitment to civil engagement. All are encouraged to engage in respectful communication that supports freedom of speech and values diversity of opinion. CAC members, staff, and the public are encouraged to create an atmosphere of respect and civility where CAC members, county staff, and the public are free to express their ideas within the time and content parameters established by the Brown Act and the CAC standard parliamentary procedures. Adhere to time limits for each individual speaker in order to allow as many people as possible the opportunity to be heard on as many agenda items as possible. Establish and maintain a cordial and respectful atmosphere during discussions. Foster meaningful communication free of attacks of a personal nature and or attacks based on age, disability, class, education, level, gender identity, occupation, race and or ethnicity, sexual orientation. Listen with an open mind to all information, including dissenting points of view regarding issues presented to the CAC. Recognize it is sometimes difficult to speak at meetings, and out of respect for each person's perspective, allow speakers to have their say without comment or body gestures, including booing, whistling, or clapping. Design team alliance. All are encouraged to engage in respectful, non-disruptive communication that supports freedom of speech and values diversity of opinion. Our design team alliance is a list of norms which describe the way CAC wants to show up and be in community while modeling collaborative behavior. We request that CAC members, staff, and the public follow the CAC's agreed upon design team alliance. Our design team alliance is be tough on topic, not on people. Respect others' perspective, respect time, practice active listening, be open-minded, speak to others as you would like to be spoken to, honor freedom of speech, and call each other in.
Thank you very much for reading that and for reminding both the CAC and of course our public on the commitment to civil engagement and really the values that the CAC operates under, and that we hope both all of our panelists and members of our CAC and public adhere to as well. So thank you very much for that. Can we please have a roll call for the meeting, please?
Sure. Council Member Rose,
Present.
Council Member Selig,
Present?
Council Member Solomon,
Present.
Council Member Flores,
Present.
Council Member Pearl,
Present.
and we have Council Member Barrera, Pemberton, and Bailey absent.
Thank you very much. We do have a quorum by one for tonight, so we are able to proceed and of course take action on any items on the agenda as planned. Looking at our agenda review and our agenda from the meeting of December 5th, I'd like to open up for public comments on the approval of the minutes and the agenda from December 5th of 2022. Is there anybody who wishes to give public comment on the approval or disapproval of the last month's minutes? Okay, no public comments. Bringing it back to the panel, is there anybody on the CAC who has comment regarding the approval of the minutes from December 5th? Okay, Ms. Camacho, can you please take us through a roll call on the approval of the minutes and a vote of those minutes?
Sure. Council Member Rose.
Approve. Aye.
Council Member Solomon,
Aye.
Council Member Flores.
Abstain.
Okay, and Council Member Pearl
Aye.
and Council Member Selig.
I did have a chance to review electronically. I vote aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, the meeting minutes of December 5th, 2022 are approved. Turning now to correspondence items. I will address we did receive two correspondence items to the CAC.
Evan,
Yes.
I don't think Council Member Solomon voted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Council
Sorry about
Member Solomon.
Yeah, I did. I said aye. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So we did receive two pieces of written communications that I'd like to discuss with the CAC. The first one was or is a resignation by Lorez Bailey, effective March 31st, 2023. Lorez has given notice to Supervisor Rabbit as well as to the CAC and our director that she will be leaving us after March 31st. So Lorez, who's not here tonight, will be with us for a few more months. We are very happy for that. But after that time, she will be resigning from the CAC. The second piece of correspondence was a letter from Nancy Pemberton. It was an email to myself, the vice chair and director, John Alden, as well as Lizette Camacho. I will forward it or ask Lizette if perhaps we could forward it to the entire CAC. This was thoughts about the agenda for the February retreat that Ms. Pemberton hopes we will consider. What I would like to do is, rather than reading this into the record now, I would like to hold off on that until we get to our agenda item number 4, where we're talking about the retreat. And at that point, I would like to read it into the record so we can address Nancy's topics and have that as part of our discussion this evening. With that, are there any CAC members who wish to give any discussion or have any discussion on those two items? And again, the correspondence item will be read later on. Any comment from our panel? No? Okay. Opening now for public comment on agenda item number 2. Are there any individuals who wish to give public comment on these correspondence items? I see no hands up. I will go ahead and bring it back to the panel and move on to agenda item number 3, John Alden and our director's report. Welcome, John. Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year and good evening, everybody. There's lots to talk about in the director's report. I'll try to hit these items quickly, and then you can let me know if you'd like to dig into any of them in more detail. First of all, with respect to some outreach, as you can imagine, over the holidays, there wasn't a lot of outreach. We did get a newsletter out, which is great. And internally, we finished up all of our work on an annual report for fiscal year 2021, 2022. So we're processing that draft now with having some folks, check the text of the report for any typos you might have in there, and having our graphic design folks take a look at it and the like. So I'm anticipating we'll probably have that before the Board of Supervisors in late February or early March, which hopefully gives us an opportunity to, if all goes smoothly, have that on the CAC agenda in February so that you can take a look. And if for any reason it doesn't work out, I'm sure we could do it in March. I'd certainly like to get your input back on that too, and give the public some time to look at it before the meeting.
Okay, good.
I know in the past, one concern has been, are we giving people enough time to look it over before we have meetings and talk about it? So I want to make sure we have lots of lead time on both presenting it at the Board of Supervisors and presenting it here. I will preview for you that one thing that is a little awkward about it is that it covers a period of time where most of us at IOLERO weren't working here yet. So neither Ms. Camacho nor I were here during that fiscal year. The one auditor we have on board, Matt Chavez, was only here for the last couple months of that fiscal year. So it is effectively what happened before most of us got here. But I think it's still important to have, reports in a timely fashion. So we'll make sure to close that out. And in the future, I think you'll see our annual reports being presented somewhat earlier, like in the fall after the fiscal year closes in late June. So we'll try to get that back on track. I'll be speaking at a class at the SRJC tomorrow. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm glad they reached out to give us that opportunity. Another set of outreach events are around Martin Luther King Day, of course, coming up this weekend. So those of you on the CAC and probably many in the public have already seen that there's a virtual event hosted by an MLK committee locally on Facebook on Sunday night. And then there's an in-person event at Community Baptist on Monday. And Councilmember Rose helped set us up with that. And, Tom, maybe you might want to say a word or two about that event so folks can come by if they like.
Prior to COVID, there were a couple hundred people there. There was music, and it was mainly a family event, get together, and then they bring up things you might want to do to volunteer to celebrate. But it's mainly just a family event. We will be there. I invite all the CAC people to show up, and anyone on the phone that wants to. It should be fun. And Lizette and I will be there between about 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. And hopefully it won't rain and we'll be outside. But if not, we're ready to go inside.
Sounds great. Hope lots of folks can make it to that. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm able to make it too, Tom. So help
Oh,
me.
good. Oh, boy.
Very good.
Lizette's going to bring her son. Can you bring yours again?
Yeah, I'll see. They'll be out of school, so that would probably make sense.
Oh, good.
Well, thank you, Council Members Rose and Flores, for doing that. That'll be great, and Ms. Camacho too. Staffing here at IOLERO, as I mentioned last time, we're in the process of hiring a new auditor. We had some great interviews since I saw you last, and we're finishing up the last round of those this week. And then I still won't be able to give you a name for a little bit once we select our new auditor, because they'll have to go through a background check, as you know. But that process is moving along well. And our next hiring process will be for an admin aide at IOLERO as well. So those are coming along. We continue to do some work with IT folks about constructing a database here. We also are going to be launching a series of new projects in 2023. This is the year for us to start working on providing discipline recommendations to the Sheriff's Office on individual cases as described in Measure P. It's the year for us to roll out the whistleblower program, and we're already talking with the Sheriff's Office and let's see if I can get this right. ACTTC, our local agency that has an existing whistleblower program that we're going to want to make sure we're interfacing with. We'll be launching our civil auditing program this year, and we're already talking to HR, the sheriff, and also, of course, county council about what that's going to look like. And this is the year to start doing independent investigations as well, which is why we're trying to get this auditor on board quickly. So it's going to be a big building year for us, and really excited to get those progressively launched over the next few months. We had an opportunity to do a great jail tour over the holidays, and several CAC members came along. Councilmember Rose, Councilmember Flores, Councilmember Solomon. Sorry, actually, Councilmember Rose, you went to a previous one, I think, earlier in December, but it was Councilmember Pemberton who came along, this most recent one in late December. And really fascinating. You know, I found it especially interesting to see the ways in which the physical plant, the physical structure of the jail has had to change over the last few years because of COVID, and also because of prison realignment. And, you know, a number of people who used to be serving longer term sentences in the CDCR system now serving them here in Sonoma County. Very complicated to reconfigure the jail because it was originally designed for quite a different population than we have now. So really useful information, and I appreciated the sheriff's office giving us lots of time and lots of access. And I know some of the other CAC members have done that tour before. If there's anyone who hasn't, I absolutely recommend it. It's very eye-opening. Speaking of CAC members, we are going to need a few new CAC members this year, and I wanted to speak to that, you know, briefly. As Chair Zelig mentioned, Council Member Lorez Bailey has given us a date for the end of her time here. She's been here almost 3 years. And, you know, she has been saying for some time that she was going to wrap up at the end of her term this spring, and that's exactly what she's doing. So I appreciate her giving us lots of notice in advance that that was her plan. She's been telling us that for a while, and she formalized it this week. I would mention to the other CAC members that I believe all but one of you have terms that are slated to end in 2023. And at least as I understand them, Ms. Camacho and I, along with the chair, we're looking over that earlier today. And it's a reminder to me that if any of you intend to renew, and I hope that you will, then letting staff, the chair, the vice chair, and your appointing member of the Board of Supervisors know that sooner rather than later is helpful. And likewise, if for any reason you feel as your term winds down that you're ready to move on and do something else, the earlier you let us know, the better, so we can find, you know, timely replacements. And I really appreciated the way CAC member Bailey has done that, because it's given us lots of lead time to help fill that slot. And for the rest of you, I'd say same, whether staying or going, you know, please let us know sooner rather than later so we can plan accordingly. We have a lot of change going on in county government, and that was really apparent over the last couple of weeks. Our HR director, Christina Kramer, has left. She's now going to be working for the county of Marin. We have an interim HR director, Janelle Crane, and I'm very excited to be working with her. She's been extremely helpful to us at IOLERO, and I'm sure that'll continue to be the case. Our chief executive officer here at the county, Cheryl Bratton, our county administrator, is going to be leaving in about a month, and the Board of Supervisors has appointed one of her deputies, Christina Rivera, a longtime county employee, as her successor. And I enjoy working with Christina. I think that's going to be a really good working relationship. So we're all really excited that she's coming on. And fortunately, the two of them have a fair bit of overlap. And of course, because Ms. Rivera has been here for a while, quite a while here in Sonoma County, I think there's going to be great continuity of operations. So we're excited about that change. I attended the swearing-ins for both our new sheriff and new district attorney over the last week. And I think there's a lot of excitement just about the fact that they're coming on board. And as I might have mentioned before, you know, with the two of them now in place, with me here, our new public defender as of a year ago, Brian Morris, and our new chief probation officer, Vanessa Fuchs. All 5 of the main agencies that involve criminal justice here in Sonoma County have new directors within the last year. So this is really a time of big change. It's be fascinating to see how that works out. I already feel that, our working relationships with all those agencies are off to a really positive start. So it'll be good to see how that goes in 2023. And of course, you all have some change coming because we're going to be moving to in-person meetings again soon in March. So we're looking forward, Lizette and I, to seeing you in person once a month instead of doing this virtually. That'll be great.
John, do we know where those meetings are going to be yet?
Well, I believe Ms. Camacho had found a spot in the county administrative center that looks like it would be just fine, and we reserved that. Lizette, do you want to speak to that just a little bit?
Sure, it's the large training room in HR. I think it's 575 Administration Drive.
Mhm.
It has a suite number. I can't remember the suite number, but it's ready to go starting March 6th at 6 o'clock.
All right.
And then I believe the suite number is 117C, if memory serves. It's on the north side of the building, the northwest corner of that building. Sort of the corner that faces towards the courthouse, if that helps at all. And there's plenty of parking there. It's part of the county administrative center. It's an area that if any of you have been to Board of Supervisors meetings before, it's in the same building, but on the opposite side of the building, and has an exterior door all of its own. So you wouldn't go through the rest of the building to get there. And as if the CAC members, try that space out and you find you'd rather use a different space, then we're happy to try to help find something else. A lot of other boards and commissions, we're told, are meeting in that space, and apparently it's well regarded by others. So we're kind of taking other people's word for it that it's going to be useful for us. And we know it has some built-in IT that should allow us to do hybrid meetings fairly well. So we'll be trying that out too, and feedback from the public about how that system works is also welcome. Obviously, we haven't done in-person meetings in a long time. From what I understand, the CAC meetings that were in person before I came on were not hybrid. So this is going to be, in that regard, a new style of meeting for all of us, and ask everyone to be a little patient with us as we try to work out the kinks, and happy to take suggestions about ways to do it better as we move along. So that'll be an interesting experiment this year. I certainly would like to talk a little bit about the retreat when we get to that, but that's a different agenda item, and I have a couple thoughts to throw out there, and I'm really looking forward to us having a robust and in-depth conversation about what we want to do with the retreat when we get to that item. So I'll save my comments about that for that part of the agenda. Those are the main things that I wanted to cover, but I'm happy to take questions from CAC members and address anything else you think might be important to cover tonight.
Thank you, John. Very much appreciate that report. Are there any members of our panel, CAC, who have any questions or want to discuss any of those items with John at this time? Okay. I see no hands raised or anybody with questions on that. Let's open it up to the public to see if the public has any comment regarding the director's report or any matters for Mr. Alden that we can address. I do see Susan Lamont with a hand up. Ms. Lamont, once you're admitted, please go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes for comment on this agenda item only, please.
Yeah, this will be very brief. I just wanted to thank John for such a thorough director's report. We haven't had anything like that for a long time, so I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lamont. Any other public comments for this agenda item? Okay, I see no additional hands. I'll bring it back to the panel if there's anybody who has anything to bring up for the director's report. The one thing I'll add for this is I know, John, you talked about some of the terms ending in 2023. A lot of them, kind of sporadically through 2023. Tom Rose, you're till 2024. But one thing I did want to let everybody know is the terms for chair and vice chair for Ms. Barrera. Those are expired, and we will have on our February agenda the reorganization of the CAC, including nominations for chair and vice chair, and elections on February 6th for a new chair for the CAC and a new vice chair for the 2023 year. So we will be doing that on the February agenda for purposes of reorganization for this term. So just think about that as well. If anybody does want to act as the role of chair or vice chair. And I'll go over that a little bit more on February 6th. But if you'd like to see some of the obligations and duties of the chair and vice chair, please look at our bylaws and you can take a look at those requirements. Thank you, John. Appreciate that director's report. And now we will go on to the CAC retreat, agenda item number 4. So opening this agenda item, what we have planned at this point is what we're calling a retreat. But essentially what we're doing is an in-person, a 4-hour CAC meeting where we would ideally like to hear from representatives from our board. I believe we're going to have Chris Corsi attending our retreat. It's also a great opportunity for the CAC to take a look at what policies and really what we want to do, what we want to set for goals for ourselves, for policies, what we want to take a look at, and how we want to go into the next year and how we want to address the work of IOLERO and the CAC for the next year. We're anticipating a 4-hour meeting. And again, it's a retreat, but it's not all day. It's going to be 4 hours, which, as some of you know, is about the same length as one of our community forums. It will be open to the public. It will be publicly agendized and noticed. As far as location, Ms. Camacho, do we have any idea where this may be for our CAC retreat?
Not yet. I'm still working on that.
Okay. So we'll find that out. Hopefully we will have that information known soon. I don't expect it will be anywhere very far. Obviously, that's probably going to be here within Sonoma County. Let's open it up now to a panel discussion, because what we don't have is really a set agenda. And I wanted to open it up to our community and to our panel and really find out where we want to go for this retreat and for the next year. Let me start with you, Director Alden, about what your hopes are for this retreat, this meeting, and what some of your ideas were as well. I know you mentioned you had some.
Sure. Well, I would say from my perspective, as your lead staff support, there are 2 things that would be helpful for me and Ms. Camacho to know from the CAC. There are probably many other topics you might want to talk about, but these are the 2 things that would be helpful to us. One would be, what policy issues might the CAC want to focus upon over the next 12 months? Because you only have so many meetings, and you only have so many members, and there are obviously many policy issues you could talk about. But if you as a group together with community could come up with a list of which ones you feel like you want to hit in 2023, understanding there'll probably be others to do in 24 and in 25 and in 26, that would be helpful. It is especially helpful if you have any particular ideas about particular policy ideas you want to do, whether you're a member of the CAC or a member of the public, mentioning them to us tonight or sending us an email. By us, I mean me and Ms. Camacho, over the next few days or a week would be helpful, because if you have those policy ideas in mind, letting us have a little advance notice about which ones you want to work on gives us some time to do a little policy research about what some opportunities might be in those areas. Mm-hmm. There are some policy areas I know that you've already worked on, like the use of force policy and de-escalation. There are some that might be hot topics on other places, but might not be as useful here and in Sonoma County, or maybe just not as high a priority. And there might be some where there's some really strong opportunities to make change given what we've seen in other places. I would say, for example, canine policies, the use of police dogs is a topic that's been much discussed in other places. I don't know that we've talked about that here or whether that's a concern of the community, but that might be a place where one could talk about policy a lot. There are some other areas in which there just is not a lot of opportunity to create policy change because the law is really restrictive or very clearly answered the question such that we just don't have a lot of flexibility. So for example, I'm often asked, what can we do to make the records about police officer or sheriff deputy discipline more transparent? And all I can really say is state law is very clear on this topic. And there really isn't anything else we can do locally about it other than what we already do, which takes, I think, maximum advantage of of current rules. And we could talk about that more at a retreat, but I don't see a lot of opportunity for us to create new or different rules there because state law really answers the question. So those are just a couple examples to give you, some ideas that, police canines, if that's of interest, there probably is a lot we could talk about there and things you could do. Transparency around discipline, probably not, for better or for worse. Those rules are just set. So the more you can tell us about which policy issues you're interested in, the more we can do that kind of research and have for you at the retreat some thoughtful, substantive ideas about where there's some opportunity and what maybe some other communities are doing, at least a little bit, to give you a sense of where you think you might be able to get some traction. Another thing that I would say is it would be useful to me and Ms. Camacho if you're able to give us some direction about what you'd like to do for outreach. Because a lot of that outreach, will be supporting you in one way or another. If you have a new idea about a way to use the website or some kind of way to use social media to get the word out, it'd be me and Ms. Camacho working with other people in the county and at IOLERO to set up that infrastructure for you. If you have some other kinds of events you want to do, then we'll be the ones that'll be staffing those to make sure they come to fruition. So the more you can tell us about what kind of outreaches you think is important, I think that'd be great. And that's helpful to us too, because each of you on the CAC and those who are in the public who come to this retreat probably have all kinds of ideas that Ms. Camacho and I don't. So we'd really benefit from hearing from you about that too. So I'd say policy issues and outreach are the two things where we'd really like to get some direction from the CAC about what you'd like to see. And then we'll be able to serve you better over the coming year in that regard.
Great. Thank you very much, John. So at this time, I think it's probably a good time for me to read Nancy Pemberton's email into the record. She discusses a lot or some of what she would like to see discussed. So I'm going to put this in the record because it was correspondence received. It may give some of our other CAC members some ideas as well. But yeah, then we'll open it up to the others and go from there. So here's what Ms. Pemberton wrote regarding the February retreat that she hopes we will consider. And, tonight we don't necessarily need to set the full agenda, but I think we should have some, general idea of what we want to talk about. Certainly we want to talk about what policy issues to address, what outreach we wish to accomplish. I believe we are going to be hearing from Supervisor Corsi as part of our agenda on our retreat. He will be there. We're really open discussions with us about the CAC and moving forward and what we may need from the supervisors, how we can work together to accomplish what we're trying to do and really get some input from them about how the Board of Supervisors is moving forward with IOLERO and Measure P and so forth. Will we have a sheriff's representative there at the retreat, Lieutenant Cash? Do you know if either the sheriff himself or yourself will be present for our retreat?
I will be present, and if you want special guest speakers or subject matter experts on anything in particular, I would also concur with what John said, is if you can give me an advanced, if you're going to want a subject matter expert on a particular item for me to research it, or perhaps like in February, I'll be covering traffic stops, I can do that. But if it's more detailed, then let me know as well. But I will be there. I'll be back by then. And if you want somebody else as a guest, just please let me know.
Great, thank you very much. Lieutenant Cash, while I have you, do we have any follow-up, and this relates to the policies moving forward, on when we may hear anything about the policy recommendations we sent over last time?
In July.
Specifically all the canine and all of the ones that we have not heard back on yet.
So I did shortly after, I apologize, I was not present for the December meeting, but we did discuss that at our November meeting. And I went back to my command staff shortly after, within a day or two after that, and brought that question up. It's specifically in reference to the July 2021 set of policies to include use of force, I believe some canine, perhaps use of firearm. After discussion with my command staff, they don't have the ability, or they don't want to reply to every policy that comes out. So we have some input from DOJ, we have input that comes in from the Supreme Courts regarding case law, we have input that comes in from county council, and for us to reply to each one, they said it wasn't feasible. If I was advised that if you want to compare, every policy we have is current and up to date. So if you made a specific recommendation of policy, for example, the canine program, if you would compare the existing canine program policy that's been recently changed to the ones that you submitted, then the comparison, and then you could tell, because we may take a sentence out of your policy, or we may take a paragraph, or we may take nothing, because law may dictate what we can and can't do. I know that probably isn't the answer that you wanted, to have a correspondence, and that was under Sheriff Essick, and now we have Eddie in office. So I don't know if that's going to change. I just don't know. I haven't had a chance to speak with this Sheriff Ingram. He was not in today, but what I was told by my command staff is, in a nutshell, that we will not be replying to, if you submit a policy tomorrow, we will look at them. We review all of them, but we may review 30 of them at a time. We will not reply to the CAC as to what portions of a policy we may or may not adopt.
Okay. Well, initially, that's extremely disappointing. I know that back in 2020, when the CAC made recommendations, there were 20 recommendations made, and we did receive a 4-page response from Sheriff Mark Essick going through each of our 20 recommendations and saying whether the policy is already covered, whether it's not a standard set by statute, not going to be adopting the recommendation. And they actually went through and gave us written responses to each one. Can you inquire with our new sheriff why it was feasible in 2020, but is no longer feasible in 2023 to give written responses to what we have as written policy recommendations? That's not the transparency we're expecting from the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, be happy to. More than happy to. And
Thank you.
again, I just had a couple other things. I don't know if it's a good time to address them specifically, because they're not, I don't really have a topic for that, but I want to discuss some AB 481 stuff. Just wanting to let the board, the CAC, know about some stuff that I have going on that may fall in tow with the CAC, but I can defer that until later. I just don't want to miss that chance.
Let's
We can post it. We can postpone it.
let's come back to that.
You got it.
Because we don't
Do you
have
have
that
any-
on tonight's agenda, perhaps, let me take a look. And you're regarding the AB 481 regarding the purchase of like military equipment by law enforcement and stuff?
Correct. I have a little bit of an update. We're coming up on a deadline for a state mandated reporting, and I wanted to let the CAC know about what's going on. But if we have time, no big deal. Does anybody have any questions, or do you have any further questions regarding the policy recommendations and the information I just provided? I will
No.
go back to my command staff.
No, not at this time. If you could inquire with your command staff, because I was hoping that we'd be able to take some responses and kind of fine tune things at our retreat if we did receive responses, because it's been a year and a half to get something back. Seems feasible in that period of time, especially with 2 sheriffs over that period of time. But thank you. John, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Zelig. Lieutenant Cash, would it be helpful if in the future we had an agenda item at CAC meetings, there was a report from you, so that whatever happened over the last month, you could bring that to our attention, then we wouldn't have a Brown Act problem with bringing up whatever it is you might have to report that month?
Yeah, it would, and I know I'm not a board member, but if there's this subjects, there's a number of things that have come up just in my travels that I wanted to let you folks know. But yeah, if I had I always want the ability to opt out in case I have nothing to say, but yes. But yeah, if just a few things, and that would be nice if I had, yay or nay, if I had anything to add.
Well, I
Let's
think
do
that's
that in the
up to
future.
the
Yeah,
CAC, but Okay,
Let's do that in the future for our agendas, but tonight, Lieutenant Cash, I'll come back to you where we do our public comment, and before we do public comment, I'll have you give us an update as part of that.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so let's open it up to our panel now. So we will have a sheriff's representative there. We will have Board of Supervisors representative there. Tom, I saw your hand was raised previously. Do you have any comments?
Very briefly, going back to you, John, you said you're speaking at the JC tomorrow. I wonder if you could discuss the topic, or, and I don't remember the buzzword, but 3 or 4 years ago, we were doing something with the JC as far as community outreach. What do people want to see from the sheriff? That got canceled because of COVID, but that'd be something good to speak about again. And, or is that what you're, and then back to what are you speaking about with JC tomorrow?
oh, sure. Well, I guess this is partly the previous agenda item and part this agenda item. So those who are
Right.
keeping us in line on Brown Act, I acknowledge we're kind of in between 2 items here, but I would say that I've just been invited to speak at a class there that they have about community policing, and it's apparently attended by a number of students at the SRJC who are interested in careers in law enforcement or in law or just in criminal justice in general. I've not been to this class before, but apparently they've had a habit of having someone from IOLERO come and present about what IOLERO is and what oversight is and how that works. And so I was happy to repeat the presentation apparently others have given to this class in the past. And that's honestly about as much as I know, but I'm always happy to talk to students. So honestly, I didn't have a whole lot of other questions other than sure, I'd be happy to talk to them. I'll let you know how it goes, and maybe I'll be able to tell you more when I report back next time. As for the event that you were mentioning, Councilmember Rose, at the SRJC back pre-COVID, I'd love to learn more about what that was going to be when COVID caused it to be canceled. And that might be an item we could put on as a potential outreach priority that we could talk about at the retreat.
And, you know, let me actually, I didn't want to forget this. Let me read Nancy's email, because Nancy does go over a few topics. And as we go through these topics, I can check with the other panelists if that's something that we may want to discuss, if there's interest from the other panelists who are joining us tonight. So Nancy first said that she's unable to attend tonight's meetings, but here are her thoughts about agenda for the February retreat that she hopes we will consider. It's divided into 2 main parts. One is how to increase community participation, so our outreach, and then subject matter topics to prioritize. Regarding the community participation or our outreach, here's what she is suggesting. The first is listening sessions with communities particularly impacted by the work of the sheriff, with or without the sheriff's representatives present, in groups or individually, similar to the listening sessions conducted by OIG for Santa Rosa. Holding our meetings in different venues and better publicizing them. These were some of her suggestions to increase community participation. Better use of our website and social media. Engaging people who are not particularly affected by the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office and therefore do not pay attention to the work of the sheriff, in an effort to increase their interest and their attention. Publicizing our substantive work through various communication strategies, and hosting education for a separate form, hosting education separate from our meetings in various venues for diverse communities. What I think we may want to do, since there are so many topics there, is add to our agenda for the retreat. One of our agenda items should certainly be how we are going to continue outreach for the CAC, in reach from our communities. So I think overall that should be a main agenda topic for our retreat. And as part of that, I think we should discuss some of these items, not today, but discuss some of those items that Nancy suggested as part of this community participation and outreach agenda item. Is everybody okay with adding that outreach portion to our agenda? Yep. Okay. See everybody nodding hands. Great. Secondly, she talks about some subject matter topics, and for these, let's find out, if there's interest for others discussing them. But obviously, a main agenda topic for our retreat will be policy and subject matter items for 2023. What are the important topics that we would like to place on our agendas for upcoming meetings, and the policy issues that we want to try focusing on? And I'll put some of these out there tonight. And of course, as we're thinking about these in the next week or so, please email John and Lisette and also myself so that we kind of have an idea of what topics you want to see as the CAC on our agenda. Also, members of the community who are listening tonight, please email us. We would love to hear from you as well, as far as what priorities of topics you'd like to see in 2023 from the CAC. So if you have suggestions on what priorities you have for the CAC and sheriff's policies, let us know so we can discuss those. Lieutenant Cash, I see your hand up. Yeah.
This might be one chance to sneak in some of my stuff that wasn't previously mentioned regarding
Oh, yeah.
community engagement. I just wanted the CAC to be aware that the Sheriff's Office is hosting our first community academy. It'll be coming up. There's 4 Saturdays, and it's on our website, but it's March 25th, April 1st, April 15th, and April 29th. And again, that's a community academy. You have to apply. Some folks have been on it, but at least I can sneak that in on a community engagement.
Yes.
Pertaining to the letter.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, so here are Nancy's topics that she listed. If we want to put any of these on. One of them was, can we or should we work to decrease the incarceration rate of people pre-trial because current conditions in the jail are severe due to significant understaffing? So that's one topic that Ms. Pemberton said or inquired, can we or should we work on how to decrease the incarceration rate for individuals pre-trial? Does anybody on the panel have thoughts on this or discussion if whether you want this to be one of our items discussed? Tom, I saw your hand going up kind of.
Yeah, I would vote against it. I think we've done a lot. We went through no bail. The amount of people in jail is down from, I believe, 1,200 before COVID to 700 now. I don't see us being in any position to comment on that. The public, when someone steals your catalytic converter and is out the next week stealing someone else's, the public is not big on this idea that we all toured the jail. I didn't see understaffing as a huge event. When I was there, I thought that was very well controlled. And of course they want more, but so I would not be in favor of that one.
Okay. Mr. Solomon, Councilmember Solomon, your thoughts on that?
I think this might have actually been born a little bit out of our visit that we did to the jail. And actually the understaffing was a huge issue. And we discussed it at length during our tour. I think the number that we basically kind of zeroed in on was they're operating basically at like 50%. So yeah, like this, and we were there at dinner time. The people at the jail were not able to leave their cells. They were all locked down because there weren't enough staff to let them out and watch what was going on. So I think that's actually just, I think her input there was just based, I would imagine, in large part on that jail visit we did. So yeah, I'd say it's something that's definitely worth talking about. And also you can almost like add on to that, which was sort of a separate topic on the jail visit, but the director kind of referenced this a little bit too, just the fact that we have so many more people who should be in prison who are in jail, and what that looks like. I mean, that obviously increases like the numbers of people in jail, but during the tour, it was also made evident to us and really clear, and I think it was something we should discuss was, we had basically like professionalized, or not professionalized, but let's see, more prison experienced people in the jails. And they were doing things that maybe were expected in a prison situation and not so much in a jail situation. And so that was actually leading to a lot of different policies and changes and structural changes, like actual, like structural additions and subtractions to the building to prevent that from going on in the future. So I do think it's a good valid point that she's making. I think it'd be worthwhile to step through it. Worst case, it's a policy suggestion, but I think we're going to see more of this going forward. So.
And, thank you, Councilmember Solomon. One of the concerns I have about this is that there have recently been lots of changes of law regarding California bail, and particularly in Sonoma County, there is now a pretrial release policy and procedures in place where when somebody is arrested, everybody is getting evaluated by a commissioner whose only job it is to review that person for a pretrial release and for a release out of jail before the charges are filed. That's already being done. Once a person is then charged and goes to court and bail is set, they're given another opportunity to request pretrial release and be evaluated for that pretrial release. I'm not sure if there is something that us as the CAC or relating to the sheriff's policies, this is not a sheriff's policy. This is state law, and this is being evaluated by the courts and by prosecutors and the DA and by the court commissioners. It is not a sheriff's policy to decide who gets released pre-trial and who does not. So I'm not sure we can do anything to affect the pre-trial population of those waiting for their cases while pending. Director Alden?
Yeah, I was going to chime in on that. This is a really interesting issue to me because I think it is one where it might not immediately be apparent how the CAC could help make policy change. And it's not immediately apparent to me that it's even necessarily directly within the scope of the CAC's authority, right? Because it's a policy created by state law and the courts about who is detained and who isn't. And the sheriff just has to execute on that. And the sheriff doesn't have any discretion about who is going to be in the jail for either the reasons we talked about, either pretrial detention or alternatively because they've been realigned out of the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation over to the jail for a long-term sentence. We're the recipients of that policy and the consequences therefrom. That said, some of these issues might be ones where the CAC might feel it's important to create some more public awareness of the issue and figure out if there are consequences that flow from these policies set at the state level or in the courts that affect the sheriff's office, and see how can we be supportive of the challenges that the sheriff has as a result of these policies that are outside of our control. So it may be that there isn't anything we can do about pretrial detention policy at the state level or about who's been realigned from CDCR back to the jails. But on the other hand, maybe it would be useful for us to hear some presentations from the jail about the challenges they're facing as a result, have some public education about that. And maybe that might cause us to think of some other ways we could be supportive to the community and also, the sheriff's office around it. Maybe there's some other changes that we could help support happening in the jail that might help us accommodate these really dramatic changes that are happening in other systems, but that really affect the jail directly. And I think there's something to be said too for just having opportunity to create public discussion and education, even if it's something around which we can't make a policy change ourselves. Because I do think with pretrial detention, there probably isn't an opportunity for the CAC to change that policy, but maybe there's just an opportunity to educate the public about how that's going and what's happening in a way that might be useful as an outreach matter.
And also why. I think the why is important for the community.
Yeah, just making some notes here. Okay, so I think maybe what we would want to do, and perhaps if everybody's okay with this, is for our policies, maybe we can have just a little bit more general jail policies on there. And as part of that discussion on our retreat, really talk about with the jail policies, what we think we may be able to effectuate as far as sheriff's policies that deal with the jail. Because there may be some things we can do. I don't know, not specifically about the staffing and things like that, but it may be able to effectuate the jail population, not necessarily the pretrial release and things like that. So yeah, let's have jail policies as one of our discussions for a discussion of how we want to prioritize that. Similarly to the pretrial release, Ms. Pemberton had something about working. Can we or should we work to decrease the jail incarceration rate for people with mental illnesses, particularly because the current percentage of incarcerated people is so high, 60 to 70%. Certainly open to ideas of, and part of our discussion with the jail policies at our retreat of how you think we might be able to do that. I don't know how we decrease the jail population for people with mental illnesses when it's the mental illnesses that play a very significant role in that person's dealing with law enforcement, their arrest, incarceration, and the criminal process. I'm not sure if dealing with the jail side of it necessarily deals with the mental illness side of it, but I think we should discuss this as part of our jail policies. If there is anything we can do as it relates to those in jail receiving treatment for mental illness or with mental illness. Can we or should we work to increase the number and diversity of the sworn staff at the sheriffs by recommending policy changes that would make more people eligible, recommending hiring and retention practices that would make people interested? Are there others who are interested in a policy discussion regarding the sheriff's hiring and firing policies and the policy changes that we may be able to suggest as it relates to employment with the sheriff? Are there others that would like to see that added as a priority? I see Councilmember Solomon, Councilmember Rose nodding in the affirmative. Councilmember Pearl also hands up, thumbs up. Councilmember Flores, what are your, yep, thumbs up. Okay, let's have that as well. Policies regarding, sheriff's policies regarding employment, diversity, eligibility. And
that also kind of goes along with our ad hoc a little bit.
Right.
We have some suggestions, some policy kind of suggestions for the sheriff, and they do kind of dovetail into that topic as well. Like, so we could probably discuss that. I don't know if it should be a separate item or if we could discuss it within that context. But either one, I think it should be something we all talk about. I think we're ready to kind of present our thoughts on what we've discovered. So,
okay. Great. And then the last thing Nancy wrote was, are there particular practices of the sheriff that we should focus on? Traffic stops, use of canines, and so forth. For that, we are talking about traffic stops next month with Lieutenant Cash. We're going to have a presentation. Let's hear from our CAC by email over the next week or so. Send in the emails to myself, to the director, and Ms. Camacho, about what policies you want to discuss. Let's get a list. If 5 of us want to discuss traffic stops or canines, we know that's a priority. So does anybody have thoughts on what other subjects you may want to discuss as priorities for 2023, just off the top? Councilmember Flores?
I'm just thinking. I know for just like the community that I work with, immigration's a big one. So anything around immigration, ICE, the way we corroborate with ICE, etc. So just off the top of my head in the population I work with, I would say that. Okay. And I love getting community input. And I don't know if we could put out like a Google form survey or something to community just to hear back, just to exactly what you're saying, what we see as a priority as CAC members, what our community as well sees as priorities. And that could be something where when we go out to outreach, that's a simple, conversation that we can have with someone to gather that data.
Thank you, Councilmember Flores. Ms. Camacho, is it possible for our next newsletter that goes out to put something in there requesting that the members of the public email the CAC with their 2023 priorities or suggestions on areas of policy that they would like us to look into and perhaps discuss in our ad hocs and focus on. A lot of our great policy recommendations come from the ideas of our community. And I think since it is January, we're doing this, basically in a month and a half from now, perhaps putting out some feelers either on our Facebook page or both Facebook page and our newsletter, asking for input for the direction of the CAC for the coming year.
Yeah, we'll do that.
That'd be great. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, if anybody here has some policy suggestions, please let us know now. But again, definitely email them to John, to myself, and Lorena, and then we'll compile everything and really have start putting together the agenda for that retreat, and we'll discuss this at our February meeting as well. I do want to let everybody know that the retreat will be led by the next chair of the CAC that is being picked in February. So if you think that you may want to be chair and you're going to be nominated, and just kind of have that in mind, that whoever the next chair is that we pick in February will be the chair leading the CAC meeting and retreat on February 25th. John, I see your hand up for this.
Yeah, it occurred to me that I should probably mention too, is more for Lieutenant Cash's benefit, that, if the sheriff's office feels that there's something they'd really like the CAC to dig in on over this next year, if there's some topic that the sheriff's office is working on where public input would be helpful, that'd be great to hear about at the retreat, so we could make sure to make time for it. And I don't know what that might be, but since, we have a new administration that's just starting, and, presumably some thinking about, a new year, a new direction in certain ways, boy, that sure would be helpful. And so, Lieutenant, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but maybe that's.
No, I appreciate you lighting my fire. Diversity and hiring, we want it more than anybody. We want to get our staffing up to staff. These are things that are very important to the past administration and the current administration. No one would be more happy that if we were up to staff with good quality candidates and a diverse, wide group of people that represents our county. With our pay incentives that we have some hiring bonuses now for laterals, people coming from other agencies. We have bilingual pay. So we're all for it. So, I got excited when that was mentioned by Councilmember Flores. So we do have some diversity in hiring concerns, and we would be looking forward to for some ideas as well. So we're ready.
Great, good to know. And let us know if there are others that you or your command staff think of between now and that February retreat that we should put in the hopper and see if the CAC can help with.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I should mention too that, as long as Supervisor Corsi is going to be there, and he's the new chair of the Board of Supervisors, he might have some ideas about things the board wants to work on or prioritize this year that the CAC could help with. And that might be an opportunity to make sure our work is aligned and useful.
And thank you. And John, Ms. Camacho, let's have the supervisors, if it's Supervisor Corsi or others, but one of our agenda items for conversation with the supervisors regarding 2023 and our work with the CAC and with the supervisors. I'm hoping that there are some things that he may suggest to address that they'd like, that they'd have some interest in. So that'd be great. That'd be great. Anybody else on our panel with suggestions at this point for policy items or items for our retreat before we open it up for the public and have some input? Okay. I see no hands raised at this time. Let's go ahead and open this up for public comments. This will be public comment on item number 4 regarding our CAC retreat. Jim Duffy, I see your hand raised. Welcome, Jim. Please go ahead and speak once you're admitted to the panelist room, and you'll have 3 minutes for public comment on this item.
Happy New Year to everyone. I'm going to not do the pleasantries and just get right into it because I'm going to run out of time. I encourage all of you to look at Sheriff Engram's taped speeches to the public. He's had 2 of them so far. One was around little after New Year's, and one was when he had his swearing in ceremony. And I encourage you to do that before you have your retreat, because having the best policy recommendations in the world, if they're not ready to be heard, they don't get us anywhere. And Sheriff Ingram really, to my ear, seemed to say he really wants to focus on recruitment to address critical staffing issues in the office. And so I think it would be really worthwhile for y'all to have a primary focus on recruitment and hiring best practices. And I just sent you guys a couple DOJ publications like 20 minutes ago that talk about them. And it's, 130 pages of reading with a lot of great ideas in it. But there's a lot of things that can be done during the campaign. Sheriff Ingram committed to signing the 30 by 30 initiative that is intended to address underrepresentation of women in the ranks of the sheriff's office. I encourage you to push him to sign that. Cregan has signed it over at SRPD. They've been operating under it for 6 months, So there's no reason for the sheriff to delay that. And, women in law enforcement, that's a whole nother 20 minutes of talking as to how valuable that is to the culture of an organization. They really should look at immediately implementing community hiring and promotions panels, as were called for by both Director Navarro and Director Threet, time and time again, and also in the CAE task force. Something that, you want to have a better hiring process, bring the community in. They really need to figure out how to make the process more efficient. We lose people to other agencies that are hiring because our process takes too long. And, young recruits who don't have a hook in the office wind up going with another agency rather than waiting an extra 6 months to get in to the Sonoma Sheriff's Office. Really important thing, I think you should explore opportunities to place civilian professionals in positions long held by sworn members of the Sheriff's Office. Talking about more flexible staffing models. A lot of agencies have found that, what was put in place 30 years ago and just carried forward no longer serves in today's world. You want to examine barriers to recruitment like residency requirements, education, background checks, physical standards, academy requirements. There's just a ton of stuff for you guys to be looking at.
Mr. Duffy, that is the end of 3 minutes. I'll let you.
Thank you. No, you're perfect. I could go on forever, but you get the idea of where I'm driving.
Yeah,
Thanks so much, and
do.
Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you're doing well.
Happy New Year,
Thank
Jim.
you, Mr. Duffy.
To you as well, Jim. Please, can you, if you have notes or documentation written down, send that to us as well so that we can make note of the things that you'd like us to focus on for our retreat. If you're going to join us as well, but please, if you can, email us that information as well so we can add that to our agenda and discuss that as well.
Yeah, I sent you the publications. I would say read
perfect.
the publication. Everything I have, I pulled out of that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Let's go on to Susan Lamont. Ms. Lamont, go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes on this agenda item once you are admitted to the panelist room.
Thank you. I would encourage the broader discussion of the jail, that it doesn't necessarily always need to be about specific policies. So, I won't elaborate on that because I think you've got the idea, but I just want to support it. One of the things that I think has been really lacking, and I think you've been up against a problem, but is in terms of communication to the public about what you do and what you've decided, because there doesn't seem to be much cooperation from the Press Democrat in terms of getting out the information. There are some things that you've done that they've actually refused to report on. So I would like to see a continued effort to try to get something going with the Press Democrat. I would suggest beyond trying to have some kind of a liaison set up, that you suggest that every once in a while you have a close to home column about what's going on, something like that. And then in the meantime, there's more than the Press Democrat. There's the Bohemian. There are other papers. There are radio stations, both the ones that are for profit and then KBBF and KRCB. There are lots of ways to get out there. The problem is, of course, at this point, you're very small. So it would be nice if you could get bigger, and some of this might be difficult to do with such a small group, but it's certainly something to aim for that could be discussed. So I do think that beyond policy, which we had to really fight for, one of the important issues is the interaction with the public, to get people to know that you even exist and that your role is important, that you've been doing important work, and maybe you'll get a lot more engagement. And I would suggest that maybe even if you could get something out, what Ms. Flores mentioned before about getting it out there before the retreat, that you're having the retreat and you want input, that would be a great thing too. And if you could get, some of the newspapers and the radio stations to mention it, would be good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. I appreciate your comments. Lizette, I don't know, besides our newsletter, and certainly before our retreat, I would like our newsletter to go out, making sure people are aware of this retreat. So yeah, definitely once we send information out, I'd like the public to be made as aware of it as possible. That would be great. And yeah, one of the things for our community outreach, let's talk about at our retreat, ways that we may work with more of the local media to get our both our policy messages out, as well as our recommendations, and of course our community events and meetings. Let's discuss how we could better engage not just our community, but our media, both profit and nonprofit, for future CAC use. That's a good topic. Okay, let's go to Alcina Horstman. Ms. Horstman, go ahead and give your public comment. You'll have 3 minutes on this agenda item once admitted.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Welcome.
Great. Thank you all for your time. Happy New Year. I'll just second everything that Jim and Susan said. And I guess I'd like to see more focus on public awareness. And I know that you all probably need an assistant because it's true, you're very small. But it seems like I'm wondering, where's the relationship? Like Director Alden is speaking at Sonoma State tomorrow. I mean, they have student newspapers. There's all kinds of stuff happening in the educational system. So I'm wondering if there's some way to connect with SRJC and Sonoma State, because it seems like there are journalism students, law enforcement students, sociology students that would be very interested in interning with you and spreading the word and learning about it and educating us, because we grow smaller and smaller with our Monday nights here observing the small group. And I think what really needs to happen is educating people on why this is important, what's happening in the community, and that these are issues that need to be dealt with. And I also wanted to say that the issue around educating the public, you don't have to fix all the issues to educate us that they are issues. I think the jail issue is huge. I think ICE issues are huge. The immigration issues are huge. And the sheriff's relationship with all of those issues are huge. And just because it came up during this topic, welcome, Mr. Cash. I'm really glad we have a new liaison. And I am very disappointed about that transparency comment at the very beginning. We need written responses. That's why we have a liaison. So I'm really hoping that you'll go back and get a different answer. So anyway, welcome to all of you. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you very much for your comments. Much appreciated. Okay, with that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to our panel for our CAC retreat. Any follow-up from our panelists based on the public comments?
In regards,
it definitely sounds like we want to have, robust discussions about community outreach, how to best reach the members of our communities and the different parts of our communities, especially now that we're going back to in-person meetings. We need to make ourselves as accessible as possible. So I'm glad we're going to be discussing that significantly. Director Alden?
It did occur to me to raise one other issue that we've talked about a little bit in some previous meetings, which is how do the CAC members feel we're doing with how we run these meetings of the CAC, right? Are we happy with how that's going or not?
Yeah.
My sense from our last couple meetings is that we've had some good conversations about that recently, and maybe we're in the place we want to be right now. But if not, the retreat would be the ideal place to talk about it.
That's a great point. Let's add to our agenda, and it may want to be one of the first things we talk about is, I guess, let's check in with our CAC members about how our members are feeling about the CAC and just the interactions, the meetings themselves. I guess I don't know what to call that, but I think that's a good idea to discuss, our feelings about the meetings themselves, what we like about them, don't like, how we can improve the meetings for, whoever may be the chair going forward, and how things can continue to run as effectively as possible. That's a good idea for discussions. Tom, I see your hand up.
Yes. I also would question why we only meet once a month. I fully understand the Brown Act and that we can't get together and talk about, but there are so many things we want to talk about that there just isn't time to bring up. Or, the chairman, we just don't have time to put down the schedule. And so I would like to bring up, can we meet more than once a month? Or why it's once a month and not more frequently.
So you'd like to change the bylaws that we just did?
I probably wasn't here when you did those bylaws, so yes.
Okay, so yeah, let's
At
have
least a discussion item.
Yeah, no,
because
that's fine. We can have a discussion item on, a retreat at the beginning of the year is actually a great time to take a look at our bylaws that we've just updated and take a look at, okay, now that we've updated them, now that we've seen these work for a little bit, what don't we like? What do we want to change? Tom, that's great. And that can be part of the discussions about, the meetings themselves. Do we want more meetings? Do we want less, do we want, we're not gonna have less than once a month, but do we want more meetings than once a month? Do we want more officers than just a chair and a vice chair? Do we want to change how things are done as far as special meetings being called, which was suggested previously? I think that's great to have a discussion about the internal housekeeping matters of the CAC. That sounds good. John?
Well, if I might follow up on that, I think a closely related issue in my mind, Councilmember Rose, is if we want to be doing more work, how do we feel about the way we're using our ad hocs? Are those getting everything done that we need to get done? More, fewer, have them meet more often? That's also an opportunity to do more, to get more work done, to have more, what would I say, energy in the group, without necessarily having more meetings of the full CAC.
Right.
There's always a balance to be struck there. That might be a topic to think about too.
Yeah, let's talk about that as part of that, because our ad hocs can get together anytime you want to discuss those policy ad hocs and bring it forth to the CAC, the full meeting. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about whether we think we're doing enough or meeting enough, and we'll talk about that. I know people are in very different. All of our CAC, we're very diverse, and we have a lot of different jobs and personal lives and things like that. So that's a great topic for discussion on how we want the CAC to function moving forward.
The only thing about ad hoc, I went to the jail thing, we spoke a lot, and they said we were back to pre-COVID. So
Yep.
I thought we were back to the inmates had dinner together or whatever. We were back to totally pre-COVID. Then I hear Councilmember Solomon say, no, it's not like that at all. If you just have 3 people on an ad hoc, there's a lot of people and we all have strong opinions. It's real clear. And so I don't want to make this a 6-hour thing, but there are so many things we could get done if we maybe met a couple times a month.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that is something we'll discuss at the retreat. That'll be part of our agendized items.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, with that, and having heard from our community on that, we will close public comment and agenda item number 4. I would like to move on, and remember, please, before we move on, please email us other policy topics and subject matter topics that you'd like to see on the agenda. Ms. Camacho, for our February agenda, can we have another item such as tonight's for the retreat discussion, just to kind of finalize things for the retreat? Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 5. These are the CAC ad hoc reports. Let's go through and see if we do have any reporting out for our different ad hoc meetings. Lieutenant Cash, I see your hand raised. If you'd like to do a report out regarding perhaps AB 481 or your.
I'd like just to jump ahead. My kid's actually joined the military and he ships off tomorrow. So I am stopping and going on a Zoom with him at 7:30. So my apologies, I'll be leaving early.
Please.
I got to say goodbye to him. So
Absolutely.
anyways, I want to first apologize to Max and Nate. We had set a date for to meet on extremism and law enforcement. I set the Zoom and I didn't make the meeting. So they had a small meeting in lieu of me being there. So my apologies again. We did had some discussions and did discuss some extremism in law enforcement, primarily an attestation form that law enforcement, our office would sign, attesting that we don't belong to any extremism groups. I reached out to multiple counties, as well as a couple of local municipalities, as well as a law firm, to see if any agencies currently have an attestation form like that, and I got 0 response. So I wanted to report that back. And if you don't mind me jumping around, just so I can discuss our extremisms, I can discuss our RIPA report, if that pertains to extremism. The RIPA report, the California Department of Justice issued the RIPA report on January 3rd. It's 223 pages long. I was just looking through it. I found out about it today that it was released, and it discusses the percentages of law enforcement stops throughout California, the disproportionate amount of minorities being stopped. So you folks can look at it and understand the graphs and charts. It discusses pretextual traffic stops, some other items that you folks may want to read before our next meeting, but it's on the Office of the Attorney General's website under RIPA board. So there's some good topics that you folks may want to discuss. Additionally, we have to, by law, publicize a in-person meeting in response to AB 481, which is Government Code 7070. Our military equipment is coming up for the annual signing by the Board of Soups. So what I'm doing is I'm compiling a list of all the stuff that we've used since last being signed by the Board of Soups. This is the first year that we've reported it to the board. So it's all use, replacement, updating of equipment, and if we still maintain that. So that report will be to the board around March. It'll be, excuse me, we're going to do a public meeting in March. The report will go to the Board of Soups around April for a signing in May. But what I want to do is make sure that you folks have first look at this once it comes to fruition. Once my report's completed, I'll be working with my command staff to get you a copy of the report and how things were used, flashbangs or what have you, stuff like that. Does anybody have any questions? And I apologize for sneaking that in, but I'm gonna bail on everybody here shortly.
Director Alden?
Yeah, 2 quick questions. Lieutenant, are you able to tell us anything about what the public meeting would look like? Is that going to be part of a Board of Supervisors meeting? Is that going to be some other meeting? Do you want it to be a CAC meeting?
It will be separate. It has to be separate from the Board of Supervisors. So
okay.
The way the law reads is I will compile a report of everything we used in the year since it was signed by the Board of Supervisors. From that, we will post a public in-person meeting that is convenient conveniently located. We have a spot. I'm working with Misty, our community engagement liaison, as to where it's going to be in public. We will post it a month prior to the meeting. We will post that the meeting is going to take place, but the Board of Supervisors is required that we have the in-person meeting and accept public comment and complaints as it pertains to the use of that equipment. So specifically the 40 millimeter, the flashbangs, or anything that's under the list, and there's 30 some odd items that we have. We'll compile of reports, when it was used, what it cost to replace, why we use certain items, short summaries. And then that report after the public meeting will go to before the Board of Supervisors for additional comment and for them to sign it. So there's like a 3-month process, me getting the report done, having the public meeting, getting it to the Board of Supervisors, and then getting it on the agenda.
Okay, so it'll be a public meeting. It's not a CAC meeting and not a Board of Supervisors meeting, some other kind of meeting in some other place and time.
Correct. It has to be in person is what our county council decided.
Okay, and then are you going to have a hybrid option for people to participate electronically if they can't be there in person?
Yes, we will.
Okay, great. I think that's
it will be posted once we come up with the advertisement or the social media type of how we're going to advertise it. I'll make sure that our folks are communicating with Lizette if she's the appropriate person to tag it, or whatever the social media terminology is to share it or whatever, so that you folks can also have your viewers have time to come in and meet in public on this matter.
Yep, that sounds great. And then the last thing I'd mention is I'm anticipating, and I pass this on to you so that you can anticipate it also, that you probably will get some questions about what happens when other agencies in Sonoma County have surplus military equipment and need to get rid of it. Do they give it to you? That is the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office. And what does SCSO do with that equipment? I mean, in that regard, you've probably already thought of this, but I would just say I might consider addressing that issue as well in your presentation, and include maybe what sorts of things you have received in that regard. I think you'll probably get questions about that. So I'd rather you were prepared for those than be surprised by them.
Yeah, and just real quick, I mean, when we say military equipment, all the equipment that we have, none of it was given to us, the Sheriff's Office, by the military. It's military-like equipment that we've purchased, like our flashbangs we purchased,
Sure.
our gas, our 40 millimeters, anything is purchased in the civilian world. We don't have any items that are surplus. We have some boats and stuff that that we may have gotten. Yeah, I know what you mean.
That I get, but I'm also aware that in a lot of counties, the sheriff ends up being the repository for military style equipment that other agencies inside the county have decided not to use. So if there's some police department locally that went through this process and decided to get rid of some stuff, if it ended up with you, that would be something I'm sure the public would want to hear about too. They want to trace where that stuff go and what happened to it. Anyway, I want to also say, with respect to your son, thank you for his service, and I hope you'll pass that on to him. And
I will.
Let's have a lovely conversation. Best of luck to him.
He's chewing his nails right now, so I'm teasing him. I'm not going to let him get away with it. But thank you, folks. I appreciate it. I do appreciate what Susan had to say, and I apologize for cutting in. I have been in some text discussions with Assistant Sheriff Doggle while we've been on the Zoom about when he gets back, that we need to, I want to retackle the idea of our responses and addressing the why. So I will work on that.
Thank you.
And I want to thank everybody. Nate and Max, let you folks take it over for the follow-up on the extremism and law enforcement. I do apologize for and I will set up a meeting and we'll get back on that. But thank you for understanding. I'm going to say hi to my boy here. So thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Cash. Have a good evening.
Good night. Good night.
Okay, community engagements. Could we hear from somebody on the community engagement ad hoc if there is a report available?
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, real quick, we mentioned the Martin Luther King Day coming up. Also, during the sheriff debates, right before ours, there was one by something called the South Park Neighborhood. And I've met with them and I'm going to meet with them. They're unique in that the sheriff used to be in charge of them, and then they incorporated their area. So now it's part of the Santa Rosa. And there's a small group of 11 people I want to meet with. And hopefully we can then start getting some feedback from them as to both the jail and the difference between Santa Rosa and the sheriff, and see if we get some input. And if that works, then they want to have a big community meeting. And at that point, we'll invite a lot more people and we'll see what we can do. So that's it for the next few months.
Thank you, Councilmember Rose. For the extremism in policing, is that Nate and Max?
Yeah. So we had, we were supposed to meet obviously with Lieutenant Cash, and that didn't really happen, but we have been kind of trading emails with him, and I think we're getting to a point where we're ready to like present some policy ideas in general. You know, we've identified some obvious gaps, and the attestation thing he was talking about was certainly kind of to address the known gaps that as we saw them. We did review over the last year plus. We've reviewed the policies with respect to extremism that they follow, and those are actually all look really good, to be honest. And the big gap, honestly, is once they go through the hiring process, what prevents or what steps are they taking to weed out these people who are radicalized once they are in the position itself. And that's really that's the thing I think that we all called out as a big gap, and something that needs to get resolved. And so we're kind of doing some research, and we'll come up with a policy recommendation to address that. And I think hopefully we can talk about it during the retreat as well. So that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Solomon, for that. Policy recommendation review and update. Who's available from that?
I guess I can, or Tom, I don't know if you want to. Basically, I think that the conversation that we're going to have next month around traffic stops came from a conversation that we were having on the policy committee that was prompted by a letter from Nancy, from Councilmember Pemberton. So I think that's basically what we were working on. That's what's moving forward. Is there anything else, Tom, that you can think of? I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's open it up for public comments on this agenda item, specifically any public comment regarding these CAC ad hoc reports. Mr. Duffy, go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes of public comment on this agenda item once permitted.
Thank you so much. Real quick, I just want to second the statement by Director Alden that I think it might be a good idea for you guys to look at how you're using the ad hocs. If you go back and look at the minutes and the agendas from CAC 1.0, back in the early days, their ad hocs would very frequently come back to the CAC as an agenda item itself, not just these little report backs that you're doing, but saying, this is where we are with our recommendation, and this is our draft so far, and meaty conversations would happen. And that was the place to grab all the information from the folks who were not on that ad hoc. Because going to more meetings, I just have a concern about staff capacity. We just got Measure P passed, we're building the office. It takes staff time and staff work to run a whole meeting. And so that becomes a concern of mine. So I do encourage you to look at how you're using the ad hocs, and being more creative with them. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Alcina Horstman. Ms. Horstman, you'll have 3 minutes on this topic once permitted to speak.
Hello again.
Hello.
Thank you all for all the work that you're doing. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to say that I think the attestation letter is the least they can do, and I would really push for it. And I'm sure there are places out there doing that. And it's just not, I can't imagine why anyone would resist signing something saying that they're not going to be an extremist or a racist in law enforcement. So I would just like to encourage the team working on that to continue working on that. So I'll send an email as well. And I think we sent a letter out a long time ago. Our group sent a letter out to everyone in the county regarding extremism and policing. And I think I already sent it, but I'll send it again. just in terms of resources, citations, and ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Horstman, for your comments. Okay, no further public comment. I don't see any additional hands raised. We will bring it back to our panel. I do see your hand raised, Tom. Councilmember Rose, go ahead. You're on mute. Oh, you're on mute. Still on mute. Hey, Tom, you're still on mute. Oh, well, I think we lost Tom. Yep, we lost Tom. Hopefully Tom Rose joins us again, but yeah, hopefully he joins us again before we conclude. When he comes back, we'll talk to him. Let's move on then to agenda item number 6, request for future agenda items. Are there any council members here that would like to have a future agenda item in the future that you know of at this point? If not, we will certainly accept emails and put stuff on for the future. Is there any suggestions for February?
I mean, the feedback from Andrew as far as, no written responses, that feels like an agenda topic to me, and how we're going to approach that if they stick by that.
I agree. Let's have that on. If not February, then March. Certainly, we need to talk about that in the next couple months. I'd like to hear back from Lieutenant Cash once he speaks with Assistant Sheriff Noggle. I was both very surprised and very disappointed to hear that response. So I am hoping he finds out more information about that. Our recommendations don't work unless we get feedback from the sheriff. So I think it's a very good topic to have agendized either February or March. Thank you.
I agree. And that's something we could also maybe take up with supervisors, and, just as an idea, we could, put those policy recommendations on the website with a little clock, just ticking by about like waiting for a response. And
it's been 1 year and 6 months since.
I mean, it's been a long time. It's too long. So.
Yeah, and they've responded previously, so I'm hoping that we can address that issue, and maybe we'll get some more information from Lieutenant Cash. Director Alden?
I did want to just reassure folks that the policy recommendations definitely are on the website.
Yeah.
And, but I think it's a good point that we should have something on there about response or non-response. And I'm sure Ms. Camacho and I will talk about some ways we could try to put that on there. Good idea.
Yep, great idea. Okay. Any other requests for future agenda items at this time? Oh, Tom, welcome back. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. I lost all power, so I'm on my phone. So
well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you joining us in those circumstances. Did you have any information about, you wanted to talk about the last agenda item?
No.
Oh.
I'm done.
Okay. Then with that, let's open agenda item number 7. This is for public comment for.
Actually, one more thing, Evan, can we add one more thing? Like, can we add that we mentioned this for the lieutenant? Do we want to put an agenda item for like the report back from the liaison on each?
Oh, yes. I do think that's a good idea to have, in addition to our director's report, a liaison, sheriff's liaison report.
I agree.
He may have nothing, but I think we should have that as a future agenda item on all agendas to give them the opportunity to present that without Brown Act violations.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry to interrupt. Yep.
No, that's great interruption. Thank you. Okay, with that, let's open up agenda item number 7. This is for public comment on items not appearing on our agenda, but within the subject matter of the CAC. Please state your name and who you represent, if applicable. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Are there any members of our public who wish to give public comment at this time? Really? Okay. Ms. Lamont, please go ahead. You'll have 3 minutes once you are admitted to the panelist room.
Yes, thank you. I'm not quite sure what to do about the discussion that happened at the last meeting about anger. And I don't know whether it should be the retreat discussion or a agenda item or somehow something else. Because I actually felt very gaslit. I think that's the current word. I would call it manipulation, but there are many, many reasons why anger built over the years. Many of those reasons precede your tenures. But what I object to the most about the discussion before was that no one, and I mean no one, has ever asked, why is the public angry? And therefore it feels like you really don't care. And there have been serious reasons. Now, many of those reasons have been remedied, but to be called out on this when no one has expressed interest from a group that is supposed to be about getting the feelings of the public, that's a real shortcoming and actually a real insult. So I wanted to bring that up, and I'm not really, as I say, sure what to do about that. But I did want to mention it. Thank you. Oh, one other thing. I had real trouble getting into this meeting, and I have in the past. The links that are provided on Facebook and the link that's provided on the agenda they don't work. They lead you nowhere. You then have to go and cut and paste and do all this stuff and put in the password, but the links do not work, and they have not worked for a while.
Susan, thank you for bringing that part up. First, regarding the first part, I'm going to continue to have discussions with Director Alden, and we'll continue to discuss what we may be able to do in that regard to address the issues of the public and the anger and the feelings that are built up with that. Regarding the second issue, briefly, that's been an issue before, and I think it comes down to some of the letters in the links when are posted on our newsletter. Because of the font, they are switched to all uppercase or capital letters, and that is not how they are with the Zoom link. I think that's an issue with our formatting, and it's happened before. If we could perhaps look into that, whoever's doing the newsletter and the formatting, I think it's the formatting when it's written, it converts it to all uppercase letters and changes basically the link to a non-valid link. We will look into that. It was an issue before. I'm sorry it's an issue currently. We will look into that and correct that, Ms. Lamont. Thank you. Okay, with that, we will close public comment. I see no additional hands raised. I will now bring it back to our council and the Community Advisory Council. With that, I am going to adjourn this evening's regular meeting of the CAC. We will have our next meeting on Monday, February 6th at 6 p.m. Please, for our CAC members and members of the public, email us regarding what you would like to see discussed at our retreat and how you would like to see the CAC moving forward for 2023. For those on the CAC at the next meeting, remember, if you have nominations for chair and vice chair, that's where we're going to be taking care of them for the reorganization of the next term of the CAC. With that, tonight's meeting is adjourned. I will see you all soon. Thank you very much. Thank you.